Good evening to everyone, and thank you for waiting so long. I know it's a long night, and some of you may need potty breaks, so I won't be offended if you go and walk in front of me to go to the bathroom, especially some of us older people here. Well, I first wanted to also thank Nebraska for the snow I was hoping for. I'm sorry that it lasted longer than I wanted. I promise I just said, I really want snow in the morning, nothing in the evening, and some of my prayer was answered, so that was pretty cool. I also want to thank Rosie, Katie, and Diane for your story tonight. It was so touching and just made me think of so many things. And I really learned a lot from you, Rosie, stories because I was already in Texas. I didn't even know some of that about my mother. It's pretty amazing, so thank you. I may have lived in Texas for a very long time. I did grow up in Omaha, and I do consider it always my home. I still have family here. I have relatives out here in the audience, whatever you're called, sisters, and my son came in from California, and brother-in-laws, and nieces and nephews, and I'm just really grateful for that. And a best friend from my high school, Linda. I'm so excited that people came because I need your support. So my talk is a little different. I'm going to be honoring my mother and talking about the lessons that she taught me. And as you'll see in the presentation, I'm from a large family. And so in a large family, I'm sixth in line. All of us have different perceptions. So I had to kind of say that out front, that this is my perception of the lessons I learned from my mother. Because it's kind of interesting how everyone perceives things at different ages. You know, it's not easy to be vulnerable and talk to others publicly about hard times in our lives and how we've gotten through it. But I do believe that God wants us to share our stories, to help each other out and to lift each other up. We're supposed to be in community. We're not supposed to be in isolation. And so this Night of Hope, which I have followed for the last 10 years via YouTube or live presentations, it has really meant a lot to me and our family and the community. It's just amazing how it's grown. We all encounter some type of hardship, and it helps to know we're not alone. So to every speaker over the last 10 years, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for sharing your story because it has helped so many people and impacted us. It's shown your strength, resilience, and your faith, and we all need that. And we all go through things. If you haven't gone through something, you're going to. I mean, it's just almost a guarantee. I think God wants us to go through things to lean on Him. And I really believe that. And I've had to do that a lot in my life. I want to thank my sister Teresa, who, like our mother, encompassed a tenacious attitude, still encompasses that, to make her dream into this Night of Hope for the last 10 years. You, the St. Robert's community, and all your friends really honored Mom and God, most of all. So speaking of sharing stories, let's get on to my mother here. My mother loved sharing stories. And if you knew my mother or were around my mother, even if you were going to visit her for like a minute, 30 seconds, or you saw her at Baker's supermarket, you were going to hear a story. You were going to hear advice. You were going to hear something about, have you gone to church? Are you praying? I mean, unsolicited advice came from my mother at all times. So my own children probably can now know, oh, maybe that's where Mom got it from. I wanted to say this too, especially you would hear stories from my mother if you were a child of hers and you were in the car, captive, driving somewhere. That was her favorite time to give you advice and tell you her stories. So I'll be talking about lessons I learned from my mother, who taught me to fervently pray, stay close to God during good times and trials. And although she had many, many stories, I'm only going to have time to focus on a few. My son's going to be my timekeeper. First, I want you to hear from my mother. There's a couple times tonight you're going to see her handwriting, which is behind me and in front of me. She wrote every day. She practiced her cursive handwriting. She read all kinds of self-help books. She would share these stories with us. She would write me letters all the time. She wrote a lot. So this is her handwriting. I just want to read it because her handwriting sometimes is hard to read. About prayer. Prayerize, daily system of creative prayer. Talk things over with God. Number 2, picturize. Pray. Print a picture on your mind. Hold the picture and surrender it to God's will. The picture actualizes. And actualize. Hang on to that picture, giving it over to God. And I don't know where I found this, but I took a picture of it, thank goodness, because it means a lot to me to have my mother's writings. She really did want us to know about God, about how to pray, and she studied it fervently. So next, I'd like you to meet my mom. You see in front of me pictures of her too, which I'll allude to in a second. But my mom grew up in Wisconsin. She was from a large family as well. I think she's the second one on the left. Anybody? I had seen nods out there. Okay. Yes, I think she's the second one on the left. And that's not even all her brothers or sisters. So she came from a big family. She also, if you see in front of me, she became a nurse. Well, before that, I'm not going in order. She went into the convent. So you see a picture of my mom in a habit in front of you right there? That's not a costume. Someone asked me tonight, my cousin, is that a costume? I said no. And I like to joke with people, like, after my mother had 8 children, I have the pictures up in my house of her in a habit and her in a wedding dress. And people are like, was your mother a nun? I'm like, well, what do you think? Sound of Music was always a fun movie for us to watch because it reminded me. I always thought that was our family, the Von Trapp family. Kind of was like that at times, standing in lines and asking who did what. So my mother was born January 13th, 1932. Her name was Joan Virginia Pierner Garro. Garro is her married name. And you might be wondering, was I named after her? Yes, I was. After having 5 children, 4 girls and a boy, my mother told me that, after having 5 kids already, she got to the hospital and had me like in 3 minutes, and they didn't know if I was a boy or a girl because no ultrasounds, and they didn't have a name picked out, so it was like, well, I guess we're just going to name her after you, name her after my mom, which I am very honored that I have her name, but it was always confusing sometimes growing up. My mother was a warrior in so many ways. She wore the full armor of God like her patron saint, Joan of Arc, which I was going to pull a sword out from my bag, but I'm not going to do that. She was humorous, smart, charitable, resilient, tenacious, boisterous, and disciplined. Our house was not only full of our brothers and sisters, but we had foster brothers and sisters coming in out of our doors as well, including my now brother Michael, who stayed. She had the first open door mission, where she opened her home to others who needed a place to live. So people literally lived in her house for a bit. Some of you might know that. She loved all her kids. Here's a picture of our family. She loved all her kids, and she loved her grandkids. This is my son Nathaniel with my mom. She loved the babies. She loved cuddling them and saying silly things to them. And she would always go up to someone, even a stranger in the supermarket, and say, like, Tony Chestnut. And there was one time my mother played Santa Claus at Baker's, and she went up to a little boy and went, Tony Chestnut. And the mom said, how did she know his name? Literally, like that happened. It was so freaky. But my mother was Santa. That's just another side thing. My mother also played Santa at times, too. It's just amazing. She wore all kinds of literal hats. Okay. Oh, we're not there yet. So, in 1992, my mom wrote all her children a letter about her childhood and the abuse she endured and witnessed by her father. I was already a young adult. I was 25, I think. And, I didn't know some of these things. And it was really shocking. She didn't really talk about it. We knew, there was some disconnect with our family, with her family and her siblings, but we didn't know why. And that letter really meant a lot to me, and I think a lot of us in our family. She wanted us to understand why it was a struggle for her to show emotions and lose her temper at times. She explained that she always felt rejected and abandoned from her mom and dad and suffered from low self-esteem. She told us how she relied on God and school and prayer to escape her home and find solace. And even one of the reasons why she joined the convent. She thought that would solve things, but that wasn't the right reason. She even apologized to us for any hurt she caused us over the years and wanted us to know that she loved us and would continue to work on breaking those chains that she felt bound to from her childhood. And she didn't want to repeat those in our lives. She didn't want us to ever feel like she did. So this letter was the message I needed to hear as a young 25-year-old wife and mother of 2 already. Imagine that. So now I'm going to relate why this was important to me in 1992. And there is someone here that went to college with me in San Antonio, so you're going to understand why I left college after 2 years. So here I am. This is my brother Joey on the left, my mother, and me, and I'm pregnant, and I'm actually barefoot, so it's kind of funny. I'm barefoot and pregnant. This picture is in Omaha. But about a month or 2 before this, I was still in San Antonio going to St. Mary's University. I had a full ride scholarship. I was involved with campus ministry. I kind of had my life planned out. You know, the trajectory for me was to, I don't know, be a lawyer at that time or something like that, which now I don't think I would do that. But things were planned out, my plans. Everyone else's plans for me, kind of. Well, then all of a sudden things changed. I found out I was pregnant. Here I am. I'm at a Catholic school. I'm pregnant. I was asked to talk at the Immaculate Conception Mass. No kidding. Go ahead, you can laugh. I can laugh now, but at the time I was horrified and full of fear and full of shame and full of guilt. I didn't even tell my mother until I was 5 months pregnant, almost 5 months pregnant. If you can imagine. I'm sure people at school, whoever is here from St. Mary's, thought I was just gaining weight or something. I just really thought that I would feel rejected. You know, I felt like I was letting people down. I didn't know what to do. I knew though I had to tell my mom. People are going to find out. So I told her. And at the time we didn't have cell phones, no video chat. It was either letters or, you know, I had to pay the fee for long distance, which I don't even know how we did that. I told my mom though, and all my fears melted away. She didn't react like I thought. She didn't get grouchy. She didn't get mad. She just embraced me. Sorry, I shouldn't be doing this so early. And offered to have me come back home to help me with my baby, and even became my Lamaze coach, believe it or not. She truly showed God's unconditional love and acceptance. A fearful situation was turned into the most amazing step in my life as I became a parent. She was indeed already breaking those chains from her past and loving me unconditionally. My beautiful daughter, who may be watching this in Texas, was born August 5th, 1987 in Omaha. So I do have a true Cornhusker in the family. I always tell her that. My mom was there for her birth. She became my photographer. She massaged my legs. She got me ice chips when I needed it. There was it was at Clarkson Hospital, I think, and there was a wallpaper on the wall with all these same flowers, literally the same flowers, but there was one flower that I had to focus on for Lamaze. And my mother made sure that I could focus on that flower and I could breathe. Experiences of labor were different back then. But what an experience to have your mother in the labor room with you. So after reading the letter that I told you about from my mom, in 1992, 5 years have passed, and I realized, you know, I've been holding on to shame and guilt and working on finding my worth through Christ and thinking about what people thought of me. And I was still holding on to that. Sorry, grabbing one of these Kleenexes Teresa gave me. So it really took some years and some broken relationships to learn that these chains can be broken, that situations in our life are not going to steal our joy for our future, that we don't have to repeat things, and I'm hoping that my own children see that. My mom started that process by making our childhood better than hers. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than hers. She took the first steps. With each generation, the weight and chains get lighter and lighter, and abuse cycles can stop. We don't need to let negative thoughts or Satan steal our joy. As Isaiah says, "For God will break the chains that bind his people. He sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives." And so those little thoughts in our head that go over and over and over, that's really where we're captive sometimes in our thoughts. We don't need to be bound by those anymore, and we truly can become free through Jesus. The second lesson I learned from my mom was her passionate drive to become a warrior. to help others in need, and to advocate for my brothers, one with Down syndrome and one with autism. In the picture is my brother Joey, as he's older. He was born June 12, 1970. Doctors told my mom and dad that Joey should be in an institution. You have 7 other healthy kids at home. You shouldn't bring him home. And so, thank goodness they did not listen to the doctors. They brought him home, which changed my life forever, and I think all of our lives. He was treated like most other siblings, at least in our family. I mean, it was a chaotic house. He was the youngest of 8. You know, I didn't know any different. Like, I didn't see him as different. He was just my brother. She even helped a really special family that's here tonight, the Sandoval family, bring their daughter home as well. Her name is Tracy, and she's right there, and she's going to be 50 this coming year. This is Tracy as a little girl on her mommy's lap, and that's some of our siblings there with my mom and Joey. And my mother was just a warrior in helping other families learn to accept their child with a disability and to find services for them. Because at the time in 1970, there wasn't really anything. There wasn't a law. Madonna School here in Omaha was the only school for children with disabilities in the state of Nebraska at that time. And it started in 1960, which was amazing. When Joey was in preschool, she sent him there, and it was amazing. My brother Michael went there as well. I remember going there and seeing programs, but I always felt a disconnect, like, why can't he go to school with me? Why can't I go to school with him? She also wrote in a letter that it was hectic when Joey was born, that there was stress and maybe struggles. But you know, I didn't feel that, because it was such an amazing time for us. We had so many families, our parents were helping. I got to follow them to so many places. The Go Arc, which is an organization in Omaha, they helped out so many families through that. And there's a picture of Tracy and her mom. I'm fast forwarding because my son's giving me time. All right, we're going on. So with that, my mother inspired me, as you can see in the program. I became a special ed teacher and a behavior analyst, and it's been a life mission and passion to help out other families all over. And my mother and my brothers really inspired me to do that. I even spoke with the principal at St. Robert's today, and she led me to see that 4 years ago, St. Robert's and Madonna School, such a full circle event, have an inclusion program now. So kids with mild and moderate disabilities are in with their general ed peers. And so the dream I had years ago to go to school with my brother happens now, and it's quite amazing. My mother and my brother would be so proud of everyone. It's so amazing. The third lesson I learned from my mother was about revealing truth. Oops. Okay, we got to get back to Oscar. So why is Oscar the Grouch here? Well, this is an actual door in our childhood home. And like I said earlier, my mother she got grouchy sometimes. She had a hard time with emotions, and I understand that now after what she told us about her childhood. I'm going to get the cane here in a minute. And so we, as a joke, it probably wasn't a good joke, we got her this Oscar the Grouch poster. She left it on this door till she died. I don't know what happened to the poster. They took it down? Who knows? Maybe the door. I should have taken the door before they sold the house. But that poster stayed on the door, I think, as a reminder to my mother, who was humorous, that she was revealing truth to us. The times maybe she was grouchy and telling us things and giving us advice, she was revealing truth to us. Ephesians says we are told how to apply the belt of truth. And the truth is that God is, in John says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So if God is truth, then I do appreciate all those times Mom was telling us things and giving friends advice and family advice. She really, truly was trying to give us truth about God and reveal Christ to us. It's not easy to reveal truth to people, especially in our culture, because we want everyone to like us. We don't want people to go away. You know, it's just really tough. So along the same lines as truth is forgiveness. Because sometimes when we reveal truth to someone, forgiveness could occur, reconciliation could occur. It doesn't always, but it could. So I have this picture. This is my mom and dad. And in the 5th grade, my parents were separated. They never divorced, but they were separated, never remarried. But it was I was in the 5th grade, so it was hard for me, but yet I kind of knew, like deep down inside, there was a little more peace between them because of that. But I also knew along the way there was still some resentment and bitterness between my parents, and I wish that that would go away. Well, in 2010, before my dad died, he was sick and dying, my sister revealed truth to my mom. You know how they say, full circle. I know my kids do that to me a lot now. So Teresa was revealing truth to my mom, saying, you know, you need to go talk to Dad. You need to reconcile so that he can die peacefully and you can live peacefully for the rest of your life. Well, she did, and they did. They reconciled. They came to peace with each other, and my dad was able to then die peacefully. I would truly believe that because of that. So this example of forgiveness was really a huge example for me, especially when something tragic occurred. And I'm almost done. I had to apply this in my life. In 2019, and you can read more about this or watch the video from the 2020 Night of Hope. Oh no, sorry, fast forwarding because I'm getting nervous. Nathaniel's telling me to go. Are you guys okay? Can you hang with me for another few minutes? Okay. All right. When my daughter was a young girl, this is my daughter Bethany, I prayed and prayed for her future husband. This part will get hard. Sorry. Gosh, darn it. And God brought Christopher into her life. He was truly an answered prayer. And I'm not saying all prayers get answered, but I mean, he was totally the guy that I prayed for her. He was a Christian, he was funny, he was tall, I knew he was going to protect her. He was just awesome. He was nerdy. I mean, he grew worms and fruit trees, and he was a police officer. He was just, I loved it. Well, 3 years ago, he was out on a call for domestic violence, and he was shot and killed. I'm not going to go into the details of that, so we don't have time, and Jeff did that a little bit. But one of the reasons I couldn't go to Night of Hope that year. So, last December, actually a day before the anniversary of his death, which was odd, December 6th, 2021, the person that killed him was in the courtroom to make a plea deal. He was either going to plead guilty or not guilty. And if he was not guilty, there would have been a trial, which nobody wanted. My daughter didn't want that. Well, thank God. You know, the miracles you want, even in this situation, are odd, but I really was hoping he would plead guilty and he would get life in prison without parole. And that's what he did. And I felt odd, but part of me was almost thanking him in my head. I was like, thank you. I wanted to thank him. And I think I may have that day. I don't remember that day. But after that, it was really quick. They let people come up and talk, and you could talk to him. Some people didn't even want to say his name. Some people that got up, you know, said, I hope you rot in hell, that kind of thing. But I really, you know, my mother really taught me about forgiveness in that last step, and she was calling out through my head. And with a lot of prayer, I realized that I could talk to him as if he was a child. He was only 25, I think, at the time, or 25 when he murdered Christopher, 27 when he pled guilty. It was the hardest thing I had to do, to face him and talk to him. How was I supposed to come to a forgiveness? How was I supposed to look at him? How was I supposed to talk to him? What was I supposed to say? I knew I didn't want to have hate in my soul. I just knew that it would only hurt me, not him. So all I could think about was how my mom would speak about truth into our lives. So I told him that I would speak to him like a parent, and I really channeled mother through me, if that's a thing. I wanted to reach his soul, to bring God into his life. Because what I learned is we're all God's children, no matter what sin we have, big or little. It can be forgiven if we go to God and we ask for that. Even someone that murders someone. And that was still, it's hard for me to grasp. That I may see Arturo Solis, I'm going to say his name because he's a human, I may see him in heaven too. It's crazy to think about that. So to go from, someone talked about hope being shattered and you have to redefine it, I think you did. It's so hard to say, how do I still have a hope when you go from a wedding to a few years later to a funeral? But there is always hope. There's been miracles throughout this, where he died, and just to be able to even fathom forgiving someone that did such a horrendous act. But what I want to end about forgiveness is this, and these are Christopher's hands. I live on a farm now. This is one of my chicks, and a few years before he died, Christopher did a photo shoot, my daughter's photographer. These are his hands, and he's holding one of my chicks. And I found these pictures after he died, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is how it has felt during this time to be lifted up by family and friends and our church community and our just people from all around the world were lifting us up. And here's Christopher lifting up this little chick that's so fragile. We're so fragile, and we are here to lift each other up. God is there to be our ultimate lifter-upper and to go to him when we need things. Because there's times we're going to feel like we're flattened out like a pancake, and we can choose God or choose something else. And I hope we all choose God and look up. Last but not least, my mother taught us the beauty in death and dying. It's hard to think that that can happen, but it can happen. Some people die suddenly. Some people have a process of dying, which my mother did. I think she really prayed for that, and she wanted that. Like I said, she was a nurse, and I don't remember the year, but she did a practicum to be a geriatric nurse. And she wrote a paper. I won't be able to find it now. She wrote a paper because she had to follow someone that was dying. And I have an excerpt from it. The quality of life has become more important as I've begun to realize how fragile life can be. I know now that I don't want to let life nor those I love slip through my fingers. As I reflect on death, the sadness is not death and separation, but rather not loving, sharing, caring, forgiving, reaching out, laughing, and realizing the fullest of my potential. The last 3 months of her practicum has been difficult in many ways, but the rewards have been fulfilling and beautiful. My experience at Mercy Care has been the key, which has unlocked an abundance of love, which has been locked up within myself. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. So her experience of death and dying and giving people permission to die and touching them and praying with them really has made an impact on my life, and I know many others. I used to shadow her a lot when she would go to her patients. She taught me that with every birth there is a purpose, and with every death there is a purpose, and God will use both to honor him. I truly appreciate what my family in Omaha did to make her death a beautiful process. They made sure she had things from her bed that she could see, whether it was pictures, leaves, because it was fall, Thanksgiving time. They put a tree outside, decorated it for Christmas because they knew she probably wouldn't live till Christmas. Made amazing charts so that people would come watch her all the time. Her last stages were beautiful. She even helped me a few days before she died because someone held the phone to her ear. She helped me make bread for Thanksgiving that year. This is the actual picture of the bread from there. This is the view of my mother's bed where she died, in her bedroom. There's the tree. There's some of the things she saw. It was just beautiful. It was a full moon, I think, that night. And I wasn't there when she died. It was November 28th, 10 years ago. But it really was a beautiful death. You know, my mother also talked to us all before she died, and she told me, just like someone talked about a cardinal. It was you again. You had a really beautiful cardinal story. Your cardinals were nice and calm. Well, my mother told me that she would, see me as a cardinal. Well, I was really grieving her death. And this cardinal would come to my car and flutter around the window and poop on the door. And it would come again and poop. It never did it before. But literally, it was like weeks after my mom died. It would come poop on my car. I would go to the car wash. I'd get it washed. Because it could eat your paint away. And I'm not kidding you, this cardinal kept doing it. And finally, after the third time, the guy at the car wash is like, why do you have bird poop on the right side of your car all the time? And I said, it's my mother. She's playing a joke on me. I even have video. I should have brought it. She's playing a joke on me. She knows that I'm sad, and she's trying to make me laugh. I truly believe that. I mean, Because soon after I kind of realized that, like, oh, no, I got to go forward. I got to keep moving on. The cardinal went away. So I had the funny poopy cardinal. I think when we're grieving, when people die, whether it's fast, long, however the death is, we just need to remember, this is what helped me when Christopher died, that we're going to have grief in our lives. I mean, it's going to happen. And I just kind of learned, like, live with grief on one hand, and joy and hope in the other, because it's going to happen. And sometimes you feel guilty when you're grieving to have happiness, but it's okay, because that's what God wants us to do. That's hope, is to keep moving forward. Sorry. And some more of my mother's words are going to come up here, so here we go. If I can find the sheet. Sorry, I got discombobulated, which is what my mother would always say. She had lots of things she would say all the time. My mother always said, leave this place better than how you found it. Whether we spent the night at someone's house or a hotel or wherever we were, leave it better than how you found it. And I truly believe in that, and I think I've said that to my kids. Well, my mother truly left this earth better than she found it. She tried and worked hard to leave a legacy different than her childhood. And as a result, I mean, just to hear stories tonight, to hear you talk about her, it's just crazy because it's amazing. But we all have that power, whether big or small. It could be the smile at the grocery store. So here's my mother's handwriting again, which I will translate. The way to happiness. Keep your heart free from hate, your mind from worry. Live simply, expect little, give much. Fill your life with love. Scatter sunshine. Forget self. Think of others, and do as you would be done by. And in those final words, I know my mother would not want any one of us to walk alone in life. So thank you.